Thanks, Karen. Um, First of all, the first thing I wanted to say is thank you, everybody who's here today. And here's Sonia Rinaldi, our dear friend. Um, I really appreciate your presence here today. I'm so excited. And I really thought to myself, why are you so excited? And it came to me that what a privilege it is to have a community of people who are actually interested in the afterlife in the way we are. It's just not that important to everyone. And maybe it isn't meant for everybody in this life to do more than just manipulate physical reality. But to me, it's an absolute need to know that there is an invisible reality realm in which there is a bigger picture. Even though I have to admit I don't understand the bigger picture, it comforts me. And I've spent a large part of my adult life exploring and trying to gain more and more confidence in the presence of that which I don't see and don't hear with my naked eye and ear. And so I'm going to share the screen because naturally I did put together one of my little slideshows. Okay, we're going to skip that. Okay, so we're going to talk about instrumental transcommunication. I'm very honored that Dan Drazen is here because what I'm going to recommend, which I do over and over, is that if you're interested in this field at all, see Dan's incredible documentary, Calling Earth. It's not only the real deal and very, very accurate, it's mind-blowing. And we could spend this entire hour talking about the history of ITC. It's not new. Around the beginning of the 20th century, when instruments like tape recorders and devices of this nature were created, messages started to come through spontaneously, not even that anyone set up and did what I will show you later that we do. It was, as some of you will see if you watch Calling Earth, Mark Macy received a telephone call from Konstantin Radova, who was in spirit. This was not something he set up to do by playing sound or not playing sound and recording. It happened spontaneously. And I think what's important about that is that our instruments are being used by us and by spirit. And if you have a phone and you have a computer, you would be amazed at once you open your mind and start playing around with this, what can and does come through. No, you're going to go upstairs if you keep this up. And so I'm recommending that you start with that. Now, Lily, spirits, please. If she keeps it up, I'll kick her out. I may have to kick you out. Let's go. You can't do this during Zoom. I told you that. If it wasn't for Lily, this little dog, I would never have known that there was such activity going on in my bedroom at night. As a matter of fact, I don't know anything about ITC or EVP until 2016. And this started happening around 2019 after I purchased Lily and brought her home. But one night, and this was back when I was still living in Manhattan, Lily just started barking profusely at what seemed to be nothing to me. And it finally occurred to me, maybe she saw something I didn't see. So I put on the video camera in my little iPhone, and I'll show you. I'm going to try to enlarge that. You'll see what I started to see only through the camera. Mind you, I will always look away from the camera to see if I can see a trace of this in the room. And the naked eye, I have seen none of it. Obviously, Lily does, but check this out. So that's one. And here you can see there's quite a few in the room. She's got one of her bull sticks. Oh, wow. That's what's got you all worked up. Now,
Alexa,
oddly enough,
play Louis Armstrong.
I had to turn Alexa off in my room now because otherwise she'd start playing. But what was, very interesting is that once I would start filming, you see, she's not barking here. I wondered if the spirits just kind of nudged her because the orbs would keep coming, but as long as I was filming, she was pretty quiet, as if she was to tell me of their presence. And I would not have known, as I say, who would have known? I saw or heard nothing. Here, let's just enlarge a little bit. Hey. Wow. Thank you. That's beautiful. And this would just go on. It's practically a nightly event, but some nights I'm just so tired, I'll ask them to please, really to just stop. But I will be in bed just about ready to go to sleep when she would start barking, and it would occur to me to see what she was barking at.
I was so worked up, huh? Really? Oh, we've got some friends here tonight. Good evening.
Okay, so moving right along here. Okay, so here we go. People always ask me, well, can you just do this at night with a flash? Does it ever happen during the day? And just a few days ago, I felt like the spirits were helping me out for the presentation. This is the window here, and this is light reflecting from the window. This was in the AM. I put on some music, and
blessed day, another dark sacred night. I think to myself, oh.
So yes, we can also film orbs during daylight. Now, what I do sometimes is I'll go through the video recording and I will take still shots from the recording of things that stand out in my mind. Started getting these beautiful colors. And when I would zoom in, I'd almost see circular objects sometimes. Sometimes there'd be just so many of them. And I have no idea what the colors mean. I love getting these big, beautiful round ones. It seems like they're so in motion, and sometimes the colors are like the spectrum where we're going: yellow, green, blue, purples. Very fascinating. Once, years ago, I was doing a reading for my friend Anne Poirier, who was filming a lot of orbs. She asked her son in spirit, Stephen, are you an orb? And the answer we got is, we are not orbs. We put them there to let you know we're around. If anyone knows or wants to take a stab at what these are besides energy, I know I cannot see with my eyes and therefore must be spirit. I'm really happy to hear what people think. I love this one because look at the size of that. I've often put these pictures on Facebook on some of the sites that are there for talking about spiritual matters, and I put a bunch of pictures on, and a fellow went on and said, well, I'm a photographer and I'm telling you it's just dust. And I said, well, how does dust make so I must be living in a dust bowl? And he said, well, the flash hits the dust and it splits it off, and I guess that's one logical explanation. But to me, Craig Hogan and I, we're trying to figure out what in the world this kind of construction is when it comes through, because they're really unusual. This guy came through and I zoomed in on it and I thought that it's just interesting. Here, sometimes you'll get 2 or 3 lumped in together. They're just fascinating. I'm trying to, okay, here we are. We're at this one now. Now, this was Craig has a development group that meets on Wednesday nights. It's a group of folks who come together who would like to develop their mediumship, whether it be physical or mental. And I go on a bunch of times to connect with their energy and play around with my instruments. So these were videos made. Craig plays lots of get up and dance kind of music to raise everybody's vibration. And folks are getting interesting experiences. This is, there's,
Look at the night, It don't seem so lonely.
Just to show you a little bit of what's going on here. And then on this one, I'm going to just point out, I'm just playing the sock game with Lily. Towards the end, you'll see something that looks like a bunch of them. It's just going to go. I'll try to point it out with the.
You're so tough. Trying to raise the roof here, raise the vibe, raise the ruckus.
Here it goes.
Oh, something
You
new.
see that thing float through? You might have missed it, but I'll show you in the next video. Sometimes I lose track of which one I'm on because it's not that clear. Okay, so this is kind of what it looked like. And here's a shot of it. Just very quick, I want you to watch this. What's really a riot, that's one of the grandkids' baby dolls, but what's really a riot is that this is exactly where my feet are. This is my bed. I'm lying right under here, and my feet are here. And if you watch, it's as if they're touching me, although obviously I don't feel any of it. Okay, and this, of course, was just one where almost at the end something goes by that looks very much like a heart. It'll just float by. And look, I mean, there's definitely light that I don't see with my eyes. Is this a heart? Maybe. Is this a bird? I doubt it. What in the Sam Hill is this? I have no idea. Craig and I have pondered this. He even sent it to a woman who supposedly called the orb whisperer to see if she had any clues. We didn't hear back. But the only thing it reminds me of is that when I was very little, I had a grandmother who was from Russia. And she had this little apartment at the top floor of a little building, and up on the roof, we were allowed to go up and sit on this like glider. And I'd be sitting right there. It was the big thrill of my young child's life. But honestly, I have no idea. Sometimes they'll change in flight. This particular turned into this and then into this. I think it's spirit letting us know they're present. So one night, and this is just another example, all shapes and sizes. This is going right down to my feet again. Some of them are huge. Some of them are round. Some of them look like a bunch of them together. Now, one night, I was on with Craig's development group. And Craig and I have noticed this one that looks like a bow tie. It came in as two, transformed, on its way out. Now, this is not a great EVP. You may not all hear it. While Craig was doing his thing with the group, at one point I put on my light and I went to my other computer and I was trying to record some EVPs, and I heard, "Mom, you can turn off the light." It's not a great one, but you might hear it. "Mom, you can turn off the light." So it occurred to me, maybe they wanted me to turn off the light and do something that I like to do sometimes, which is film myself dancing with the orbs. So I went over, I put on a colored light. As you can see, the orbs were right with me. So what I did was, what happened was, and this is so interesting, I had this very interesting thought. A few years ago, when videoing myself dancing, I caught this in the movie and clipped it off, and I loved it because it looks like I can see that light, but obviously I can't. And this thought comes into my head while I'm doing this that said, if you'll dance around, maybe, we can place something that'll look really cool, like that other picture you love. So I started dancing around with Craig's music in the background, and lo and behold, there we were. There's my hand. You can almost see a little bit of light on my fingers, because these messages will come directly into your mind if you want them, if you're open. And I wanted to just show you this video only to show you not so much of the orbs. Watch Lily. She can see this. You'll watch her head bob, she'll move, she'll respond to them. It's like she's looking up, she's looking back, she's looking around. If it weren't for Mr. Camera, and again, that's the instrument, the instrumental transcommunication, the instrument that can perceive these things. They're so bright. Some of them are so bright. They give off light even around it. But we would never, ever see these things. What does that do for me? It assures me that I live in a world of more than I can see. And that's the beauty, I think, of ITC. Now, this is very strange, and I welcome anyone to give me any opinions on this. This happened about a month ago, and it's happened once before. I have that video for you too, but I always go, is it the bird? Is it the plane? All Americans will know. We go, it's Superman. I go, it's Superfinger. Check this out. Lily was barking, put on the video. I started to see this through the camera.
Well, what is this? What? I don't know what that is. There's nothing over there.
I kept looking, because I see it.
On the phone. There's no, what are you? What? Where are you? What is it? I can't see it with my eye. It's not my finger. There's nothing up there. Oh my goodness, it must be spirit.
So then I zoomed in on the video now that's on my phone to get a still shot and then blow it up. And it looked like there's circular, like more than one orb. This looks like a jellyfish to me. And to be really honest, it's very weird. But 2 years ago in Manhattan, when I was still living in Upper West Side, now this is August 11th, 2020, glad I saved the date, the same thing had happened.
What? Oh, all right. So let me see you. Who are you? Talk to me. Talk to me. Come in and talk to me. What can I do to make this more visible? Come on in. Come on in for a landing. Come on, you're right here now over my bed. Who are you? Sounding. Let me stop.
So one of the things that's irked me, I'm just getting something to wet my whistle here, is this talk about it's a matter of the flash playing games with your phone. So when I was on Craig Hogan's group, Brenda Aller, who I don't know if she's here tonight, Brenda, it told me about this little camera called the Blue Rams camera. It's right over there. And how it works on infrared. It doesn't use a flash. And she would set it up in a room when she was sitting with a group to do their medium thing. And they would get images of orbs coming through without any flash in total darkness. So I had to get one. And Brenda was a doll in helping me set it up. Now, I'm not overly impressed with this video that much, but I want you to see, because there was no flash involved in any of this. It was pitch dark, and I can watch on my phone what the camera is filming. So I'm probably just in bed in the pitch dark. There's Lil, and I've got my phone. I'm looking at my phone, and if you watch, you're going to see. And this was during Craig's group, I'm pretty sure. And here's some still shots I took also off of that camera. I woke up to get a glass of water. It was filming. I just leave it on all the time. And then I go through it and see. It's just to prove to myself that is not a trick of the flash. No light at all. It's totally pitch dark. So how interesting. So this is a form of ITC we can see with our eyes. If you have a phone or the video camera, I encourage everybody to put it on now and then, because you got to play to win. You have to try it to make it happen. So, there's ITC we hear, and there's ITC we see, and there's another form of ITC we see. I'm going to say it right now before I show you these up close. This is not exactly Sonia Rinaldi. Doesn't compare with Sonia's work, but I try it all because, to me, I want to continually reinforce my faith in the bigger picture. It's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day and forget. So I started trying this after I learned through Sonia's work that such things could actually be done. And when I was on the Zoom here a couple of years ago, Isabelle Duchenne, who's a medium in Belgium, told us that she could film images by filming the reflection on her glasses. So that was what I tried first. And then I learned from Sonia you could use steam from a humidifier, colored lights, sometimes a patterned background or bubble pack, sometimes a shiny black surface, and of course your video camera. Now, again, let's see Sonia's if you want to see really good images, but I believe that I have a face here. This was steam. This was the first I ever saw. It was on my glasses. I believe that's my first standard poodle Genevieve. This face, which many people say they could see, was behind a whole bunch of other faces. I think spirit works differently than us, and it's kind of like magic eye. If you guys remember that book that came out maybe in the 90s, like if you looked from a different angle, you could see a whole other picture. That can happen. Now, this looks a lot like my son Danny to me, and that's using bubble pack and steam. This looks like maybe an apostle. This picture is interesting because when I look at it, I sometimes see a face here, I sometimes see a face here, and sometimes I even see a face of a darker skinned person here. This one, whoopsie, many people said they could see. This also was buried under so many layers of faces, and I see a face here. It's like and I will tell all of you, it's not the recording that's difficult. It's sitting for the hours that I know Sonia sits at her desk going through tons of stuff until you actually can visualize and see a face. And so I think in all of the work, EVP as well, it's not that making the recordings are so difficult. It's putting in the time and effort to listen and look and find. This face, which I love, came on my glasses once while attending a global Zoom meeting. I saw a reflection, I videoed it. I went through the video and found a face. So I encourage people because it's such a gift. So that's ITC that you can see. And now we're going to move into what I really, really love, and that's hearing through ITC. And I love it because it's proof to people sometimes that their loved one has gone on. And I've heard Dan Drazen say, well, it's not, and it's true. We don't get long paragraphs through this method, and we might not necessarily write a book, but for those who are really, really bereaved, when they get one, and Allison can tell you, Allison Rogerson, when you get one that comes close to the sound of your loved one's voice, it's just a great gift. So what in the hell is EVP, electronic voice phenomenon? It's the way we use instruments to bring through messages from spirit. And before I go into that whole process, I just want to tell you, be aware. If you have these instruments, they might just give you something spontaneous. Vicki Talbot, who is one of the people who trained me, it was her and Craig Hogan that had endless patience for me. Vicki and I were texting one day. You all text, so you all know what a text message looks like. We were texting a few years ago discussing Seth, who was a teacher who spoke through Jane Roberts, wrote books. I was in the classes. Vicki read the books, and we were discussing our viewpoints on Seth. And all of a sudden, on the text message, we both got a symbol of when someone sends you an audio message. You've all gotten one, I'm sure. So Vicky asked me if I sent her a message, and I didn't. And I asked her and she didn't. And so I was wise enough to know now that you better record things into the recording program or you'll lose it. And shortly after that, it did disappear from my phone. But this is what I recorded.
Yeah, hello, Jack. Yeah, hello, Jack. Yeah, hello, Jack.
We didn't do this. This was spontaneous. Was Seth aware that Vicky and I were texting about the work, or somebody else who was deciding to play a game with us? But neither of us attempted to bring this through. And I will show you one other. I was on the phone with a fella in Arizona making my reservation to go to the first AREI conference. Throughout the phone call, static kept cutting in so loud that he couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear him. So we're talking, and I need a single room, and then it took about 3 times before it occurred to me to run and get the computer and pull up a recording program. So I put the phone on speaker, and the next time it happened, I recorded. Then I went back and listened, and you will hear it's staticky. You'll hear it sounds choppy, but you'll hear here to get everybody together. I guess Spirit jumped on the line to tell us this is why we're having the conference, but take a listen. Here to get everybody together. So these were spontaneous things that showed up that I did not ask to do or set up. So I'm just letting you all know, if you possess instruments, and most of us have a computer or a phone or both, you don't know, you might get a call from someone in spirit you love very much. So be aware these things can happen, okay? Now, 2016, I read an article, probably was, I'm not sure where I read it, but it was about this couple in Russia, Spitnevs, who believed they were talking to their son through this mysterious thing called EVP, and I was spellbound. Absolutely blew my mind. I didn't know if I believed it was possible, but I knew if it was, I was going to give it a shot. Now, all it involves, and I tell you this because people think it's so, and I did too. I just thought you'd have to be really, really adept at computers and technologies to do this. But in fact, all we do is make a recording. Back in the old days, everybody knows, those of us who are old timers know, we used to make recordings of our LPs to play cassettes in the car. Well, that's exactly all that we do on our end. And that's when I realized I had to be working with spirit or a higher intelligence, because I do not know how to play a Beatle album and record it and have anything on there but the Beatle album. Whatever changes the sound, the discordant, crazy sound we play into actual words, I don't know how to do, any more than I know how to make an image out of steam. And so we must be working with others that do know how to do that. And so the first thing I learned from Craig was you have a recording program and you play sound, and then you can get answers. So the first thing I worked with was human vocal gibberish. Here's an example of what it sounds like. You shouldn't hear words. You should just hear a lot of gibberish. It will make you crazy listening to it. But now I'm going to play you some examples of EVPs that were made using this kind of gibberish. We play this craziness, we record it. And when you go back and you go through it very slowly, take a listen to this. This is a dad asking his daughter if she's happy, and she'll say all of the time. And this was very recent in the EVP group that I hold, which will start meeting again next month. Is there a message for jail? Be at peace. Is there a message for jail? Jill wrote me and said she played it for her siblings and the entire family swear it's her dad. Maybe so. Isn't that exciting, and how exciting for her? Um, okay, right. So we're here. Now, then in comes Vicky Talbot to tell me, well, a lot of people in the field don't really like that gibberish stuff. They want you to create what's called transform EVP, which is where you use things that have no language in them whatsoever. And in the same way that I like to play around just for my own edification, I started trying to experiment with all kinds of sound. And I'm not going to play everything for you because we would be here till tomorrow. But now this one called Clipper was made by a fellow named Keith Clark, and it's just electronic sound. Take a listen. So in a sense, your EVP is going to reflect the kind of sound you played. This was something I tried by scratching my finger over by the mic on the computer. It sounded like this. And here it says, Mom, I'm happy. So I did discover that, in fact, I could use water going down the bathtub drain, and Spirit could transform that sound into words, something none of us know how to do. Now, then Vicky turned me on. She's such a creative EVP researcher. So something called EVP Shifter. You can all get this as an app on your phones. And you just put it on. And I just let it run. And so you'll love this. This came through EVP Shifter. Many people don't know that my legal name is Cheryl, but I was never called Cheryl except when I was in trouble. I was always called Sheri. But my son Danny, he always got a kick out of calling me Cheryl. And I was running Shifter and recording it. And when I played back, I heard Sheri, Cheryl, 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 very much like Danny. And that's just using something on the phone. I would say probably my best EVP ever. And this was made with gibberish that Sonia sent me. It is gibberish, but it's Portuguese. It's a little boy named Lorenzo speaking in Portuguese. But obviously it's chopped into gibberish. So I asked my son, let me know, if I should use this. I didn't know if I could use a foreign language. Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
I'm sure most people could hear I speak in English. Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
So I now knew that whatever you presented to them, they would do their very best to use it, to get messages across. While I was very involved, you all know I'm very involved with the Prayer Registry for parents and children. And I went through a period where I did this thing where I said roll call, and I would just see if names would come through. Beverly, Mariana, Colby, Lisa, Lena, Betty, Betty Ann, Charlotte, Joni, Kevin, Ramayo, Jim, Virgil, Sandra, Holly, Lorna, Josh, and going right. I just have a few more that these were made on something called, some of these were made on something called Phasma Box, which is known to be called a ghost box, which is something that has language and radio streams running through it, and you can get some fascinatingly interesting EVPs. Listen to these. You can read them, right? I don't need to say what they are. I'm Rita. And it's Billy. Suzette. Listen to I Am LeBron.
I am LeBron.
Mary. And this was one, really get a kick out of this. I asked if they were happy. And someone with a distinctly, I think, kind of British accent says, we're bitching. Are you happy?
Mhm.
So this is a lot of fun. So rather than run you through, I had more to play, but I think time is running short. So I'm going to go to the next step. Vicki Talbot again, who is, I don't know if Vicki's here, but she's presented and you all have heard her. She's incredibly creative. She turned me on to the idea that she had been recording for quite a while with the big circle many of you have heard of, with no sound. She just told me this a few months ago, and I found that shocking because I'd only been trained to receive an EVP if you provided sound. But then Vicki told me about Donna, who I know is here, Donna Boyle, who's a medium, and how she discovered and brought to all of us something called auphonic.com. Auphonic.com has a little function in it that allows you to remove some static and leave over some vocal. And Donna was kind enough to get on a Zoom with me and show me how to use it. So I'm going to play this short clip. This is Donna's voice, and you're going to hear an astounding EVP. So take a listen.
Okay, so this is how I heard that last video I just shared where a soul says, Daniel. First, I hear it through static. So I have to amplify a spot where there's nobody talking. And this is what I heard. So the static made a lot of ups and downs, up and down, and I heard a voice underneath. And then I took away the static, and that's when I heard Daniel. Daniel did very well today.
Thank you, Donna. You've added a lot to all of us who are in this field because this is really amazing to me. Right away, I started trying to run the recording machine. This is it, but not have sound going in, just recording. And so I did. And this is a friend of mine who lost an only daughter. Now, these were made with no sound, but then increasing the static and then removing the static. So no sound was provided. And I hear them pretty clearly. I hope you will. The first one says, thanks a lot, dear mama. Now, this woman told me that she was quite sure her daughter and an old friend who just passed visited her, and we did visit you. And then here's one visit for you. But the crowning beauty of it all, because it was an only daughter, was we will stay together. We can come together. No sound provided. To me, it's just another level of amazingness because they were able to imprint thought on a recording that wasn't providing them with any sound. So these came in very recently, and I wanted to just share some of them with you. I was sent for all of you today. I think this came up during Craig's group. Sometimes they're kind of sing-songy, like, I was sent for all of you today. People need to be free. I went on the other night, and I was really crabby. And I just think this was my son, Danny, ribbing me. He says, I'm sorry, but you're old. And then it's we call for Sheri. And I've been asking them a lot of questions. As you all know, my husband is fighting cancer. It's been a couple hard years. So I'm always like asking them, and they're always saying, we can only. I think this was another joke where they said, it's our mission to answer you. I think they're teasing me. And he going, that's my mission, Mom. That's all I do is. We told you everything we knew. What's really interesting to me is that it actually came in the call of mercy in the sense that this is Meet Bella. This is Susie Bennett's dog who's now in spirit. And Susie, can Susie just speak for a couple of minutes and share what happened? I mean, if we go a little over, is that okay?
I'll be
All right.
quick.
Okay, good, Susie. You just want to tell us about what happened with Bella?
Yeah. Okay, so Bella was transitioning a few weeks ago, and I just had this thought that if there's recording with no sound, what if we can get recording as the transitioning is happening? And I sent Sheri a message and asked her, I said, can you do a recording for me so I know what to do? And Sheri kind of responded with, what do you want me to ask? We were both kind of just like, I don't know, just try it. And this is what we got.
What's so interesting is that Susie's husband's name is John. My first thought was, boy, I sure hope she's not home alone. And the first one I heard was, look at John.
And
Then we heard, she's overdue. I think it says that. Then I heard, poor Bella wants to be free. And we heard, suffering is miserable. Susie, this was part of the one about goodbye that I didn't get to tell you, but I heard this also. And it was enough for us all to feel like we were making the right decision. Now, look, these are made without sound. I think some of the ones made with gibberish may sometimes come in clearer. I know parents tell me they hear the voice of their loved one more frequently when I will use the sound. So I'll use everything at my disposal. But I wanted to end this playing things for you by telling you the final message that I hear over and over and over and over through every different sound source I have, which is I love you. Love you, Mom. And the last one says, deep inside, I love you.
Claire.
And that's the message. That's 90% of what they want us to know is that they've gone on, we'll go on. Now, I know people are going to have one question because they always ask me, well, what are the obstacles? Why am I not getting anything? Now, I believe Sonia told me she did it for years before she actually got phenomena. So I guess patience is a key, and something I was never gifted with. But I think that we have two things in our belief systems that thwart us all. One is that it's just not real, or the other is it might be real, but I couldn't possibly be good enough, developed enough, pure enough, worthy enough to bring any of this through. My answer to that is that three-dimensional reality, as experienced through this physical body and this brain, we're kind of taught and set and directed to rely on those five physical senses to determine and define our reality. But it's a microcosm of the greater universe that we dwell in. But we have been taught to trust that perspective, to maintain a logical mind. But I believe our spirits have their own means to perceive, which we all know is demonstrated through remote viewing and all forms of spiritual experiences. But it's largely been pushed aside by the purely physical worldview. People say, well, then how do you change your view? I mean, if you were brought up to believe that what's real is what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears, and the message that my teacher Seth gave all of us was that we had to dehypnotize ourselves, that many of us had been hypnotized to believe it's not real or we can't do it. And he said, use affirmation, use suggestion, tell it to yourself until you believe it, because it's the truth. And so my conclusions for all of this today is that spirit is around all of us, but you got to play to win. Instruments can definitely be used to make things visible and audible that we can't see with our eyes. It's not about the technology. I believe we can all do this, but you need to take the time to do it. And as Vicki says, don't forget to ask the 3 Ps, which are prayer, protection, and permission. And then I finally said, well, what is the point of all this? Why am I so interested in all this? And why does Spirit bother to give us these demonstrations from the physical seances, which we all know is over the top amazing evidence, to mental mediumship? Why? And the answer I got in my head was they want us to live in faith about the bigger picture. And that doesn't mean that we understand it or why a child would pass before a parent. And it doesn't mean that we rid ourselves of all doubts, because the doubting mind doubts. But the more evidence you have, the more you're able to have faith that there is a world surrounded in a sea of invisible reality. And to me, that gives me hope, because it's a graceless world these days. And we come on here so much and talk about the shape the world is in and how so many of us have been praying for peace since we were in our 20s. And I say, at least have faith that there is a bigger picture and it sustains us through this. So that's it.